Hey, we're back. It's Goal-Oriented Episode 10. I am Austin Curtright. I'm joined by other OU Daily Sports editors Mason Young and Colton Sulley. The weather has changed since the last time we met, but this OU football team hasn't. We got Bedlam on deck Saturday. OU's coming off back-to-back losses, still seeking bowl eligibility with 2 games left in the year. Guys, where are we at right now?
Well, I don't know that we've stated it super explicitly, but I think that's kind of been in the back of our minds and in a lot of other people's minds. Is this the most, insignificant Bedlam that's ever happened? There is still a level of importance here, right, for OU because, they have to get bowl eligible, and that's very important to everything they're trying to do in terms of player retention, recruiting, stuff like that. But both these teams are just really not good. Like, you look at, obviously, OU, the 3-game losing streak, and then just a horrible loss to West Virginia this past weekend. Stuff that can't happen. OSU just lost to Kansas recently and has not looked the part exactly.
They had a 48-0 shutout against Kansas State. I mean, they didn't have – well, Spencer might have been available.
Spencer got hurt in the K-State game, didn't play in the Kansas.
And, that was the game where he had the Gunnar Gundy meme where he's, shaking his hand. But, I mean –
Jake Bean.
That team is –
Jason Bean.
Jason Bean, yeah, Jason Bean.
But, that team without Spencer Sanders is pretty abysmal.
And it's the same thing with OU without Dylan Gabriel, and we saw that. And quarterback play is definitely very important going into this one, as I'm sure we'll elaborate on later. But, just really feels weird to this not be a high-stakes game, especially after last year when it decided who was going to the Big 12 championship game.
How is this game 6:30 on ABC? How?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at the rest of the Big 12 slate, but I guess they're just banking on, the rivalry holding its own there.
Yeah, I guess.
Like Mason said, it's hard to imagine this game being what it is right now, especially with we're so used to the last couple of years. You think about, the winner of this game is the Big 12 champion, or the winner of this game goes to the Big 12 championship, or even like last year, OU still has a route to the playoff if they beat OSU, and then OSU also had a path to the playoff if they beat OU and went on to win the Big 12 championship. So it's really odd that we're in this situation right now. Kind of gives me vibes to when I was 10, 11 years old, and both of these teams would be unranked, or it'd be OU's 21 and OSU's unranked or something.
I was just about to say, I think this is probably the most insignificant since 2013, or 2014, the Tyreek Hill game. I think OSU had 5 wins and OU had 5 losses that year or something. So, but
from our standpoint, it obviously seems something that's pretty insignificant. But Brent Venables has continued to state that the team's trying to finish strong, and how important getting to a bowl game is for the rest of the season, just given the momentum it gives them going into the offseason with the offseason program, and how it can help recruiting, and even understanding that some of these guys that are coming in have a chance to contribute right away for this thing he's trying to build. So what are some of the top-line thoughts that we had talking to Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof and Brent Venables this week about just the importance of trying to end this season on a high note?
Yeah, well, bowl eligibility is number one. As we've alluded to, it's very important for recruiting. If recruits see that you didn't make a bowl, especially when you're in this situation of having a first-year brand new head coach and a new coaching staff, I think that can go both ways. I think some recruits look at that and say, it's a fluke. They'll get it figured out. I think others might be concerned about the trajectory and not wanting to invest, 2 to 4 years at a place like that. So that all factors in. But then also for the current team, Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof both talked about a lot, especially given that OU has a really inexperienced roster. It's important that they get these extra practices that would come with a bowl week. And then obviously the game's a big part of that too. You get another game, another opportunity to go out and compete and play well. You set some momentum for the next season.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's another month of being with the team. Burns trying to build a culture. I think he's pointed to 99 after OU hadn't made a bowl in several years, and then going 7-5 that year and making a bowl was huge going into 2000, and we all know what they did in 2000. So just, the camaraderie of the team, being in the same room every single day, being on the practice field for another month that you wouldn't be if you didn't make a bowl. I think that's huge, and I think they need that. And like you said, the recruiting. What are these recruits going to think if OU doesn't make a bowl? It's going to be pretty interesting. But
one of the biggest takeaways I had from just that sort of instance is when we were talking to Ted Roof on Monday. He said, these practices for some of these younger guys, is like extracting gold almost. So just the thought of these guys having something to play for, a couple more weeks of getting to do that, and then especially just how helpful it can be for a team to go to a different neutral side and go hang out, and some of the things that come with, I guess, a week of festivities. I know, when we were in the Alamo Bowl last year, we had a fun time, and those guys on the team were doing all sorts of different events and stuff. Other than just practicing. So I think that can be crucial for a team, and especially like we talked about, the momentum, I think, is a big portion of it. I think anytime you end a season on a win, there's going to be momentum in the offseason for sure. And then that's definitely diminished if you aren't able to win one of these next 2 games, which are definitely going to be challenges in their own right.
Well, yeah, like even in heading into like winter workouts, coming off a bowl win, it's way different than if you haven't seen those guys in a month or whatever, and you didn't make a bowl. So it'd be huge momentum going into winter and spring ball.
It's not going to be the Sugar Bowl, and it's not going to be even the Alamo Bowl that we saw last year, but just the thought of it as being, you're not going to probably remember what bowl it is, but you're going to remember the fact that you went out your season on a win.
Yep,
yeah, for sure.
It's not like OU's hurting for cash flow, but there's still a little bit of money involved anyway. So there's an incentive for. I feel like the whole idea of like people like dropping bowls or just like not accepting their bowl invitation unless they have like roster limitations. I feel like that's becoming less of a thing because everybody wants the money that's involved. So that's one thing. And then I think too, also like OU is the kind of institution that's like very prideful and is not going to like show any signs of defeat by saying like, if they're bowl eligible, like we're not going to take the bowl. So I think that's a couple things to watch as we kind of like see this period where OU has 2 more games to get bowl eligible. Does that actually play out, or are we just kind of thinking that?
Yeah, something a little bit off topic on that thing when you get talking about money. Obviously, Crimson Cream Machine, a new NIL collective that's been started by a former OU, I guess, what would you call him, assistant or staff member? Yeah, so they started a campaign that's raising $3 million in 30 days. I think it's pretty obvious that they're strategizing for this time period. In the next 30 days, you're going to get, right before then, you're going to get signing day. Mm-hmm. It's going to be right when the season ending, so you're going to hit the transfer portal really hard. I think that's pretty strategic, and I think OU, that's one of the collectives that OU has decided to back. So I think that's, like I said, really strategic and might be helpful to fill out the rest of this class. Maybe you're able to flip David Hicks back from Texas A&M with the dumpster fire that's program right now.
That would be huge. That would be huge.
And maybe keeping some of those guys if you aren't able to go bowl eligible, and maybe, I guess, be a quick fix for the time being. But guys, just for this week, for OU's chances of beating Oklahoma State and maybe going forward, if they have to win in Lubbock next week, few injuries. Key Lawrence missed last game. Justin Broyles went down with an injury. Andrew Rain missed some time. Jane Davis went down with an injury. Jalen Redmond played just a few snaps. What's some of their statuses going up for Bedlam?
Well, yeah, Brent Venables explained today that it sounds like just about all those guys are going to play. He expects Justin Broyles back, which is kind of crazy considering that he hyperextended.
Really good news,
yeah. Kind of that since
we were speculating when we watched it. He looked like he might be done.
Season,
right,
yeah.
Right. You kind of worried that his career might be over, and that would really stink for someone that's been around, 6 years now and has been so invested in this program and really just improved year by year and earned.
I was shocked to see him running around last night at practice. That was a really good.
And no brace. Yeah. That's what Brent Venables said is that hyperextension. He said something around the lines of it really hurts when it first happens, but.
Yeah. Structurally,
there's no damage. Yeah, so that's always a good thing.
I think he's still going to get an MRI just to.
Oh yeah.
For sure, but he looks really good news on Justin Broyles. He looks like he's expected to go.
So that's big. And then Brent Venables said, should have Key Lawrence, Jaden Davis back. Jaden Davis had some sort of leg injury against Baylor. Key Lawrence couldn't really tell. Thought maybe something with his hand.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, wrist or something.
Obviously, those guys didn't play against West Virginia, so that's big because it just kind of felt like. To me, it felt like, especially with Broyles' injury and not knowing how long he's going to be out, that could really take the sails out of the secondary. Like, you just got Billy Bowman and Damon Harmon back, and now you got even more guys injured. But so getting those guys back is huge. And then, Jalen Redmond, to your point, not really sure what's going on there, but obviously he didn't play a lot against West Virginia, and it sounded like from what we had understood last season, he like had a minor knee injury where he had like a minor arthroscopic surgery. Yeah. And so obviously you don't like seeing that flaring up again is not good, especially because OU's defensive line has not been very successful this season in terms of, at least in the back half of the season and during Big 12 play, in terms of generating pressure. And he's clearly the best, at least interior player on that defensive line, and probably the best all-around player in general. I think if you moved him out to end, he'd be great there too. He's had success there in the past. So we'll see if he plays. That seems a little bit more iffy. And then Andrew Rame, OU starting center, seems a little bit more iffy as well. Sounds like, I think a lot of people kind of thought just like his shoulder just kind of gave out during that game. And when that happens, it's like, okay, well, I don't know what else you can do. I think it's good for OU that they have someone like Robert Conjal, who's like pretty stable, that they can just slot in there at center and he can go and they can still move the ball and do everything they want to do with their offense. But Rame's obviously really talented, so it will be some sort of detraction if they don't have him for Bedlam.
Yeah, and he didn't rule out that he could play. Obviously, he said he's going to have surgery at some point, which is unfortunate for Rame. He's obviously dealt with injuries in the past. So, but yeah, like you said, Robert Conjal came in, played really good. Brent was really pleased, Lebby. And we've heard nothing but good things about Robert Conjal, so we'll have to see how that offensive line kind of what plays out Bedlam.
It's interesting to hear about Andrew Rame playing with an injury this season, especially with knowing the severity of it now. What Venables confirmed today. Today's Tuesday. But yeah, that was really interesting to hear that he's been playing with this injury that needs surgery, but he's going to maybe try it out. And then Redmond, that's just been such a blow for them. It seems like he still has yet to be healthy in his OU career.
And that explains a lot. Like we thought he was going to be one of the best defensive linemen this year, and the production just hasn't been there.
And I mean, I wonder if that's an injury. I wonder if that's something where he might be more productive at defensive end rather than tackle. There's a lot of different things there, but we've definitely seen it from him, and he was supposed to be the guy that was really leaned on in that defensive line group, and we just really haven't heard much about him this year like we thought we would. And it's even interesting to think like we haven't even talked to him this year. He hasn't even been made available for post-game interviews or midweek interviews just because he hasn't really done anything that I guess warranted that. But
well, and obviously he had that concussion in fall camp that I think kind of slowed him down a little bit. So yeah, like you said, I mean, he's never really been fully healthy. But what's kind of crazy is like, and I saw the stats the other day, and I don't remember what they are at the top of my head, but when you look at, like, he's still among all OU's defensive linemen, he's the sacks and TFL's leader, and it's by quite a large margin. And so I think that just speaks not only to his struggles to get healthy, but just the broader inefficiencies of this group this season.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I mean, they've all been not that good. I mean, they had 2 sacks last week against West Virginia, but
looked a lot better, especially the first half.
The pressure did look a lot better in the first half. Now, is that because West Virginia is not very good? Like, probably some parts of it, but it definitely looked better.
Until they put Garrett Green in.
And then
it was over.
That sort of, they got destroyed on the ground, and like we just talked about with all those injuries, they're gonna need those guys because Spencer Sanders is gonna provide another test for them on the ground this Saturday, probably more so even than Garrett Green did, and he was able to run for 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, and pretty much what was 2.5 quarters. So, I mean, what is OU gonna have to do to get after Spencer Sanders, who's been one of the best quarterbacks in the conference this season?
Well, yeah. I mean, all the OU's coaches the past couple of days have just been raving about his experience, the fact that when you combine his high school and college careers that he has some odd
like 90 starts or something.
That's something
crazy.
Like that. And so that plays. Like, I mean, he's been on this stage before. He's been successful. Like, when you think back to last year's game, like,
he played really well in that game, yeah.
Now, obviously, the year before at Norman, he got thrown around by Ronnie Perkins, and that was kind of funny to watch.
And then exited the game, and Illingworth came in, right? Yeah.
So that was...
Who is just, like, whatever. I don't even... Mountain West... Is Nevada in Mountain West?
Yes.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
I watched him play this season. He's terrible.
So that.
I did. I watched him play as well. Yeah.
Well,
He had like 90 yards.
Yeah.
Like 9
I
for
think a
30.
quick aside on that.
But-
I feel like that kind of speaks to who Mike Gundy's ability as a coach to be able to use him
Oh,
and
yeah.
win a couple. Because there were a couple games where Sanders got hurt that year as well, and they won with Illingworth.
Yeah.
So
Didn't look too bad at times at Oklahoma State.
He wasn't
Yeah.
able to pull that magic out this year when Sanders has missed the last couple games due to a shoulder injury. He confirmed that he was going to play Bedlam. He came in for Gunnar Gundy, who started last week against Iowa State due to Spencer's injury. But then Sanders came in and was like, all right, I'm playing superhero mode, injury or not. I'm gonna play this thing. And Brent Venables talked about his moxie. You know, Spencer Sanders, pretty outspoken guy, said he's going to play through injuries. And he's pretty much carried that team to every victory he has this season.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like he has the swag. Like whatever that it factor is, like he's
He's
got
a winner. Like
Yeah,
he
he
just
is a
finds
winner.
out a way to win. Like you said, he started 90 games since high school. That's almost unheard of. Like
And so the
over
key
over
again,
50 starts in high school, over 40 in college. That's insane.
Yeah, well, and the key again is going to be the pressure.
I think-
is pressure with contain.
I think
which
that-
I think that's the two things. Is there's not been enough balance of that.
I think that and creating turnovers, because we've obviously seen in the past how Spencer Sanders, I think, what was it, the Big 12 championship last
Yeah,
year?
I mean, he had 2 turnovers against OU in this game last year. It was
Yeah.
Woody Washington's second full game back, and he had 2 picks.
So if
after,
if OU's defense can create some turnovers, get Spencer Sanders a little bit off his game, I think that's probably key to success. You're not gonna. Well, obviously, we've seen this defensive line's inability to contain the run, so I think he's going to hurt him on the ground. But if Billy Bowman or one of those guys can pick off a pass, create some momentum for the defense, I think that could really put OU in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another key is that, like you mentioned, but on the flip side, Oklahoma State's really, really talented defensive line versus OU's run game and OU's offensive line, which has been really, really good the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Eric Gray is playing like one of the best backs in the conference. He's definitely playing himself in the NFL rosters.
For sure.
He said he's going to go through senior day stuff, but it isn't confirmed if he's going to come back. I doubt he'd come back, just given how good he's been this season.
Yeah.
Brent Venables brought it up today. I haven't confirmed this stat, but he said he's the fastest to 1,100 yards since Adrian Peterson.
I didn't know that.
That's
That was
some
pretty crazy.
good company to be in, especially for a team that hasn't been that good. They sure have been really good at running the ball.
I think I saw something. He has the most 100-yard games since, in a row, since Samaje Perine.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it from a broader scale, there was at least one point this season, and may still be true, where he was leading the country in yards per carry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think he might be like sixth. He's at
He was first at one point, but
he's at like
he's probably
6.8,
sixth now.
which
Yeah.
is 6.8 is a really, really strong number.
But I think it goes back to that year Perine broke the record against Kansas or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's pretty. Adrian Peterson, Samaje Perine is pretty good company, I'd say.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been very good, and asked Jeff Lebby about it the other day. Like, I think my biggest concern going into this game with the strengths we mentioned in OSU's front is pass pro, and Jeff Lebby, like, we've seen the success that they've had in the run game. The question is, can they keep it up in the pass pro? And obviously, Dylan Gabriel got sacked like 3 times against West Virginia, but for the most part, Lebby said he felt like the offensive line kept him clean and really has seemingly done a pretty good job of that all season. It seems like a lot of Dylan's mistakes have been when the timing isn't right, the cadence isn't right, and he either doesn't get the ball out or doesn't get out of harm's way quick enough. So that's the thing is for him is offensive line continues to protect him against OSU's front, but then also he makes the right decisions with the ball.
Yeah, and especially you just have to. Another key is you just got to hope that Eric Gray can hold this thing out. 59 touches in the last 2 weeks. Thankfully, he was able to do that and didn't come out with any injuries, especially when Javonte Barnes, who just came back from an injury, wasn't available yet. But he's back now, a freshman running back.
And
Obviously,
you kind of had a moment there against Iowa State where Javonte wasn't there because he was hurt and Eric got hurt. And you were like, oh, boy,
Oh, yeah.
here we go.
And Eric came right back in, but that was a very scary thought for every OU fan.
But yeah, he's obviously taken a load and he's playing nearly almost every snap for this offense and running all over people, and he hasn't slowed down yet. So hopefully, for OU, he can continue to do that. But he's gonna have to go against some dudes over there, Trace Ford and Colin Oliver, and I don't even know if some of those dudes are not injured, but I know they have a ton of injuries right now. But Tyler
They have
Lacey,
a couple
and
are injured.
also, and Brock Martin, who who's the other guy that left early.
They had Brandon Evers that opted out.
Brandon
Yeah, he
Evers
was
opted
really
out.
good.
But they have a lot of dudes up there, ton of depth. Like we said, OU can play like maybe 3 formidable guys on this line at a time. OSU's got a stall of them. Now, I mean, in the secondary and at linebacker, not the same story for them, of course.
Yeah.
But
like you said, OU's offensive line has been really the most consistent group of probably any, other than special teams at times this season. So it'll be a good that defensive line of Oklahoma State and the offensive line of OU is going to be a really good battle.
The one thing I wonder about with OSU's defense, and I mean, obviously, like, we're not in the building regularly, like, we don't know so much about these guys because that's not the team we cover, but, like, do they have a glue guy that's like a Malcolm Rodriguez this year on defense? Because I don't know that they do.
I don't either. Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I would imagine it's Jason Taylor out at Carl Albert. I think he's had a pretty good year.
I know Kendall Daniels has stepped up and
Yeah,
become-
didn't he? He just got a weekly award.
He's been really good.
Yeah.
He's been really good. But I think that's the other thing that you got to prepare for is understanding that this Oklahoma State team is 7-3. They have a couple of bad losses against Kansas State and Kansas, but outside of those games that they didn't have Spencer Sanders for most of the time, you have a big win against Texas.
Yep.
Where they generated takeaways in the secondary.
Yeah.
That proved pivotal in the win.
Yeah.
So
and they
Their only other loss is TCU.
they
right?
lost to TCU, but they had a big
were
lead
up.
in that game.
Yeah.
This team was top 10 team in the country, just a few weeks ago, and that was with Spencer Sanders, who seems to be back. So this could be a really tough matchup for OU.
OU's favored by 6.
Yeah,
for
which
some
is
reason.
I
don't know.
I'm not really sure. That Vegas line, I would smash it if
Somebody knows something that we don't.
little bit of a preview to my prediction a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, I would smash that line. I can't imagine how that makes sense. Maybe Vegas thinks
They know
that
something.
Spencer Sanders isn't
Maybe.
playing or something.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
they got in a window of a tall building with a pair of binoculars, and they saw that Spencer Sanders' arm was in a sling.
They should-
And then they put in there.
Gundy and Venables should just make a mutual agreement where we're like, okay, we'll play our backup quarterback. We will play our backup quarterback. Let's see who wins. So
Does OU win
No, I
with
don't
Davis
know.
Bevel
I don't
versus
think so.
like Garrett Rangel or Gunnar
I
Gundy?
don't
that's the
think
thing.
so.
I mean, how Gunnar Gundy was atrocious last week against Iowa State, but is he worse than Davis Bevel? Probably not.
Probably not.
And he's even he's a walk on.
Yeah.
And he's better than Davis Bevel. I
That would
don't
be a
know
good
who
matchup,
wins
I
that
think.
football game, but
I don't know who wins this football
What,
game.
I
to
I
be
don't know
honest.
who the
Maybe
yeah,
maybe
I mean,
OU can like kind of shimmy that into playing Braden Willis at quarterback and just like actually use the Wildcat stuff and like just keep going with it, and maybe they could actually win a game.
Yeah,
with that
I mean,
somehow.
that's- I don't. I
It
mean,
might be
they-
better than starting Bevel.
Probably.
in Texas at times. They had so much success using that Wildcat play, and it's just disappeared.
That one drive where
You
they
know-
went down, I think, did they miss the field goal or went for it on 4th down?
They
They
went
went
for
for it
it
on 4th down. That one drive, that whole drive was.
I mean,
So that's
Eric
been a
Gray's,
thing.
Yeah,
Like-
Eric Gray's running all over them. They're using
Yeah.
Jalil Farouk in all these fun ways, and they've done that a little bit here and there, but.
Not enough. Like I
Yeah,
think
not
they could
enough.
still use that
I don't-
some, and it would provide an advantage.
Same.
And it would definitely help with some of these 3rd down conversions with how bad they were last week. I mean, 1 for 13 is really bad.
Horrendous. Not going to do it. You're not going to
You
win
know,
very many football games.
4th down, you're struggling. I don't think Jalil Farouk can get enough touches in creative ways with how electric he's been this season and
For
how
sure.
limited he's kind of been used recently. Even Marvin Mims working in some of those roles would be nice.
Well, and Braden Willis we just mentioned, but
Who
he
is-
Yeah.
literally has like
Where's he been?
5 catches for 30 yards in the past 3 games, or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Where was he at West Virginia?
I mean, obviously, he had a touchdown called back,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
noted that, but
Yeah.
I think Jeff Levy talked about trying to get him forcing him the ball on a 3rd down play. But he said Dylan got the pass batted down or made a bad throw. I
And
can't
then you
really
mentioned the
remember.
flag where he was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this team has weapons to use. The offense really hasn't been much of an issue this season. West Virginia, the rain was bad, but too many missed opportunities there for sure that were left on the field.
Yeah.
But
We're going to have to not drop anything against Oklahoma State, but hopefully it's not raining. So we'll see.
Speaking of Braden Willis, he's going to be one of those guys that hasn't have any eligibility left, along with Justin Broyles and a few others. And then there's some that maybe have the opportunity to come back but haven't quite decided. We know for sure that Woody Washington, who is a redshirt junior and has time left, he will be walking for senior day. Drake Stoops. But what are we thinking there? Who else do we think is likely going to walk? It's so different now, especially with how the transfer portal works and how many guys are going to the draft early, and then especially with the COVID year, people will walk but maybe come back, or people will walk but transfer. So you kind of just do it so you don't want to miss that cool opportunity to have with your family. But who else do we know is walking, or who else do we think might walk, and then are they going to come back?
Well, I mean, just about every guy that was, I guess, sort of eligible was asked last night, and even some guys that weren't. To start, Dylan Gabriel was kind of pretty much non-committal, said, he hasn't really decided yet, and I thought it was kind of peculiar that he was asked because he still has 2 years of eligibility left. And I think some people forget that, given that he is a redshirt junior, but he does still have 2 years of eligibility.
Technically, yeah. If he wants to use the COVID year, he can. But.
Yeah. So he's an academic senior, but he still has 2 years of football eligibility. And so you look at that. I mean, that's obviously good that he's coming back, or that he likely, I think we could probably agree, is coming back.
Yeah, and especially given what Brent Venables said today about knowing that, hey, we don't need a quarterback in the transfer portal. That's a little bit of a preview of what we might talk about later, but figured we could fit it in there. But yeah, Brent Venables was like, well, we don't need to go get a quarterback in the transfer portal because we already have one of those, which was pretty surprising. I think
based on the depth at that position, it was really surprising to me. I mean, obviously you have Jackson Arnold coming in, but
you have and Nick Evers has been better, but I mean,
but look at the back.
You have a Heisman contender in the transfer portal. You're just going to be like, no, we're good with Dylan Gabriel. I mean, more power to him, but
I don't know. The other thing that was interesting was Marvin Mims was asked, which he's not even a senior yet. He's a true junior, so I don't really know why he would walk, but I guess the questioning was more along the lines of like, hey, are you coming back in general? And because obviously he is draft eligible and the decision window for that is in January. And so he kind of just said he was going to play out the rest of the season and wait until after the bowl game to think it over and make a decision. So that is assuming they get a bowl game.
It's going to be very interesting to see what Marvin does, whether he decides to stay, transfer, go to the NFL. But I was super surprised to hear that Drake was going to walk because we all assumed he's got another year left that he would probably stick around. He's don't really see him going to the league or transferring. So I thought that was interesting that he's going to decide to walk, but we'll see how that plays out.
Another guy that obviously we didn't talk to last night, but that I think went through senior day last year, but that may be out there again this year, or if he doesn't walk, I mean, he's definitely not coming back, is Deshaun White. Like, he's out of eligibility. His stock has absolutely gone through the roof in recent weeks, and honestly, props to him for coming back and
he's played really well.
Yeah, same thing. It's pretty much the same thing as Braden Willis. He took this last year to understand that there were some things he still needed to improve on to become a player that NFL teams would be interested in, and he's done that. So
obviously, Deshaun White's a big one. Justin Broyles, that one's gonna be gonna be weird having a OU football team not with Justin Broyles on it next year. Just 6 years, he's played. Just about, I mean, he's been in 2 playoffs.
Casey Kelleher.
Or what is it? He's been in 3 playoffs. He's played in 3 playoff games.
Yeah.
Well, not played.
17, 18, 19, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, no, not 17. He was.
He was on the Rose Bowl team.
Was he really? No, because 22,
this
21,
is his
20,
sixth year.
19, 18. Yeah, so.
Yeah, he was on it, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Man. But
that's pretty wild.
I think Kelleher was too.
Yeah, I mean.
And another specialist, I mean, I would assume there's no way Michael Turk is coming back next year.
No way.
So I think he's out of eligibility anyway, and obviously he has NFL prospects. The guy that'll be interesting that you mentioned is Woody Washington, because he hasn't absolutely had an amazing year this year, but he's been very good. And so it's just a matter of what does he want to do?
He might not want to stick around for another potentially bad season. Brent Venables talked a few weeks ago, kind of giving some insight into how he gauges some of these conversations he has with guys or was that Brent Venables? I don't know. That might have been a class thing. Me and Colton were in a class.
Oh, it was with Bob. Yeah, Bob was telling us.
Me and Colton, that was crazy, but me and Colton were in class the other day.
Yes.
And Bob Stoops came to talk to us, and he gave us some insight about his conversations he would have with his players when they would be
deciding whether to go to the draft.
or not. Yeah. He brought up examples of who was it? He was Mark Clayton,
Yeah.
and it was
Who else?
it was Jamal, the offensive tackle.
Jamal Brown.
Jamal Brown, yeah.
And he was like, well, they could have gone to the second round. They came back and they made $8 more million or whatever going to the first round. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting. Obviously, Woody Washington probably knows what his draft stock is. I would imagine he gets drafted if he declares. But yeah, I mean, that's another one. It's one of those guys that you didn't really get to see a whole lot of given the year he was really the guy in the cornerbacks room. He was all hurt last season. And then this year, just with how bad this football team has been, you haven't really got to see him much in those situations. But
Add in that he's playing injured. Like, he's been playing through a shoulder injury, like, the whole season.
Yeah, and then his freshman year, he plays safety and has to get mossed by Justin Jefferson, who's maybe the best receiver in football.
And we were talking, like, joking around about it, but an injured...
Playing out of position.
Him playing injured is better than whoever would replace him playing.
That is kind of true.
He's been playing really good, so...
Oh, yeah, I mean, you don't hear much about a corner. It's usually a good thing, but...
Yeah.
I wonder about David Guebu as well. He's a true senior. Obviously, he has time. He can come back next year for COVID year. I would imagine he comes back. But I mean, he has a frame that, you get David Guebu in a combine setting, and he'd probably just smash with his numbers. He's, like playing middle linebacker, like 250 pounds, and he's obviously a freak, and he'd probably run like a 4.5, 4.6. And
well, he's one of those players. I think Bob was taught, the whole yeah, you can get drafted in this round, but if he has a monster year, comes back next season, his draft stock would only jump. So
that's the thing.
I think he's one of those guys that Brent's probably gonna have to sit down with. And
one guy that's not a senior that we haven't mentioned, but that's big, Anton Harrison. Like, if you're him, how do you not go?
He's getting
That's
drafted,
the thing.
yeah.
I mean, he's been really good. He might sneak into the back half. If he comes back with an early second back half of the first round grade, he has to go.
Oh yeah, he has to go.
And I mean, he's been really good this year. And his measurables are just everything you want in a lockdown offensive tackle. I mean, like 6'6", 330 or whatever.
I would say
he
he's
is.
gone.
I would say he's probably gone as well. But we haven't heard much about him. But I mean, you look at him. We'll get to talk to him sometimes. You're just like, he's a behemoth of a human being.
He's an NFL body.
But he's not like, you don't look at him and be like, he's looked out of shape. Like, he is just a gigantic human being. Yeah,
Yes.
he's NFL ready for sure.
And in terms of that offensive line, we mentioned Robert Conjul. This is definitely, I think, his last year of eligibility.
Sixth year. What is it, fourth school he's at or third school he's been at? But
something like that. But you've got Chris Murray and Wanye Morris that are both true seniors that might be able to come back next year, and that might be pretty big for OU if those guys have the opportunity and are able to do that.
Well, did you say Chris Murray?
Is Chris Murray a
No,
true
he's
senior,
a
or he is a fifth year?
redshirt senior.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is his last game.
He used a COVID year to come back, so he's not going to be back.
And then you look at the defensive line.
This offensive line is going to get depleted next year because Wanya Morris, you don't know if he comes back, but he hasn't been particularly good this year. You lose your best tackle, you lose your best guard that isn't Ranger Rame. McCade Matoyer, he still has time back, but he hasn't been particularly good yet. So next year you're probably looking at Jacob Sexton and Jacob Taylor, who both played a lot this year. They're probably stepping in the lineup. Maybe you look to the transfer portal. Maybe Savion Byrd can finally, be what people have thought he can be with his potential. But
This is the last year of Big Bray.
Oh my gosh, Big Bray is also in this.
One of the only 3 or 4 5-stars on the roster. Right?
I mean, I remember that kid coming out of high school because he's from Moore. He's an Oklahoma guy, and he was just like, everyone's like, this guy's a smash. Like, he's going to be a huge time, like a big time offensive lineman. Like, he's going to be gone in 3 years, go to the league, and he's just. I'm not sure if he's ever even actually played. I know he's gotten on the field for some snaps, but I don't think he's ever played. But
he is.
No one's ever really understood that situation with him not getting able to be on the field. But
he is still huge.
Oh, he's the biggest player on the team. He's
he's massive.
And you look at the fifth side of the defense; it's really intriguing. Like, you've got guys like Jeffrey Johnson, C.J. Colden, Trey Morrison, guys that either have played a lot or like have started to play more recently this year. That it seems like those guys just never really got going like OU probably hoped they would, getting them out of the portal. But I think on the flip side of that, you still look at that and you're like, hey, it's senior night for them. Like, it's a big deal. The program, I'm sure, probably appreciates their contributions and their decision to come through. So
For sure.
be good to see them get honored.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of those fifth-year guys have really had the years that they wanted, and it kind of sucks for them. I mean, you go 4 years at a school like all of them did. They were all highly regarded guys in the locker room, which was the thing that Brent Venables wanted to go get. But you look at Trey Morrison, C.J. Colton, Jeffrey Johnson, some of those guys. They've all had their contributions. Daniel Parker as well, but they've never really produced a whole lot. You think? I mean, just from what we see on the field, we don't know what they're like as teammates or anything like that, or how helpful they are. But those are some of the pieces you need in a locker room for a team that needs to go on to the next season and hopefully fill some of those spots before that you have Brent Venables get his whole next couple of recruiting classes in. But I think that just kind of sucks to think about. I mean, you're like, the senior day doesn't really mean as much for them, it seems like, just given how much they contributed at other schools before coming here, and then not ever getting to going here. Like, you think of Justin Broyles, who's gonna, he's from Oklahoma City and he's been taking visits here since he was little, and it's his 6th year, and it's gonna be a whole lot of emotions for him, and it might not be the same for some of those 5th-year guys.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. It'll be interesting to see what it is indeed like for those guys. But like you said, for Justin Broyles, for any number of other guys, Drake Stoops, if this is indeed his last game in Norman, which I guess we don't really know, I bet there definitely is going to be a lot of emotions involved.
For sure. Yeah, that one was surprising to me.
You get the Stoops field on this. I mean, this will be the first time in how long? Since 1999 that Oklahoma, or since 1998 that Oklahoma hasn't had a Stoops in the building.
If Drake doesn't come back next year, then that
23 seasons without a
wild.
Stoops in the building. So.
Is there one they can recruit?
I don't think there's any left.
Bring back Mike.
Where's Isaac?
The Mike return campaign
What's
for
Isaac
the third time is in the works.
I don't know. I think Isaac's a student. I think
okay. So he could walk on.
Maybe he'll still be technically at the school next year. So there'll be a Stoops maybe for another year. He won't be with the football program though.
Maybe.
But
I don't know.
For all we know, Bob could end up being the interim coach of this team again one day.
Who knows?
You just never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
Guys, I think we've sort of hit all of our bases here.
Yeah.
So not that predictions really mean much for this, but what are our predictions we're rolling with? I'll go first this time.
Okay.
Since I think I've been going last recently. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State 38, Oklahoma 28. I think Spencer Sanders is going to have a big day. He's going to go out on a high note because he's been the heart and soul of that program for a few years now and won a lot of games. And he's going to come back from injury and provide them a big win. And, I don't remember who they play in their season finale, but they'll probably sneak into the Alamo Bowl should TCU win out. And they'll play probably a good Pac-12 team. And he'll have his last hurrah before his chances at the NFL. But I think that'd be a good win for him to go out on, especially because me and Colton talked about it earlier in the week. But this is like the 4th or 5th time that OSU has a chance, or this would be the 4th or 5th time OSU would win back-to-back games against Oklahoma. It doesn't happen very often. So I think that would be huge for him.
I think Baylor is their last opponent, maybe.
No, they lost to Baylor in Baylor.
Yeah,
at Baylor.
No.
They beat Baylor in Waco.
So
yes, they beat Baylor in Waco.
Who did they play last?
West Virginia? I think it's West Virginia.
Probably,
That's probably it. Yeah.
So, I mean, like you said, good opportunity for him to finish out. And I think for that reason and all the stuff we just illustrated of, like, obviously you got some injury reinforcements coming, but even when you've had those guys, you've struggled against mobile quarterbacks and really just in general, I guess not even mobile quarterbacks, but like prolific quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, more generally. So I think I'm going to go with something along the lines of Oklahoma State 35, OU probably like 24. I just don't know if I feel like that front seven of OSU is going to provide plenty of challenges for OU, and I just think that the defense isn't going to be able to come up with enough stops to make this thing happen. I mean, just as rampant and consistent week in, week out as the 3rd and 4th down issues are for OU's defense, like that's just not something that's going to be fixed before the season's over.
All right, I'll do it. I'll pick OU. I'm going to go. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't know why. I think it's going to be a weird game. Both these teams are weird. Like nobody knows what's going on.
Just some weirdness going on.
It's in Norman. I'm going to go like 45-38. OU. I think OU taxed the secondary. Like you said, the front's going to be really tough, and maybe that limits them. But I don't know. I think Dylan and Marvin connect on some. Jalil gets involved. I think they create some turnovers on defense. I think OU loses at Tech, but I don't know. For some reason, I just have a feeling. I think they could pull this one out. I think it's going to be a weird game. It's going to be a crazy game.
If OU wins, Venables is required to hit the gritty at midfield.
Well, this is another thing.
I want to see weird stuff.
As bad as this program, as bad as fans and this program is right now, if they beat OSU, it's only going to be their 6th win, and it's still a bad season.
They're going to be feeling good.
Yeah, there's definitely some vindication.
There's a huge opportunity here for that, and I think I just have a feeling. I don't know. Me and Vegas, I don't know. Just think alike. I don't know. We'll see.
Part of me really thinks this OU team will pull out one of these next 2 games and get to a bowl game. Or Colton just really wants us to go hang out at the Liberty Bowl, or is it the Liberty Bowl in Memphis?
Yeah.
So
see, this is my thing.
Go just get.
I'd be down.
Go to get destroyed by a Conference USA team would be pretty fun.
How badly do you guys really want to go to Memphis or Orlando or Phoenix 2 days after Christmas?
I think this team
really seriously,
dude. Memphis is a short drive. It'd be a fun time.
But I do think this team loses at Tech. I don't know why. I just have a feeling.
Well, we'll see if your feeling's right. But, yeah, like you said, these kind of games, these kind of bedlams sometimes get entrenched in Sooner fans' memories for some reason. I think a lot of people always think back to that Tyreek Hill punt return game winner just because, 1, that was a huge play. 2, Tyreek Hill is one of the best players in the world right now. And then also, did Cody Thomas play in that game?
Yes.
Yeah,
did.
So, I
always thought back to the year before.
Who was OSU's quarterback? Was it Clint Shelf? Was it? I can't even tell you who they're. It might have been the first year of Taylor.
The corn dog!
Or it might have been the first year of Mason Rudolph.
I think it was. I always think back to the year before in the snow in Stillwater. Blake Bell and then the Jalen Saunders. That game was crazy. And then they, of course, went on to beat Bama in the Sugar Bowl. But a lot of Bedlam memories for sure, and I think this one could be just as crazy as those in the past.
Anyway, guys, I think that wraps it up for us. I think we're just excited as you guys to watch what should be a fun football game on Saturday. So, just as always, hit up oudaily.com for all of your coverage needs. And then go listen to our post-game podcast, which we do on Twitter Spaces, and we upload that recording on Spotify after the game. So, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.